April 16th, 1945. Over 1.5 million Soviet soldiers stand at the gates of Berlin. The final apocalyptic battle of World War II is about to begin. Hitler's capital will become a graveyard, and the streets will run red with blood. This is the story of how the Red Army fought building by building, room by room, through the ruins of Nazi Germany's last stronghold. The assault begins with a bombardment so massive it makes the earth shake. Soviet artillery fires nearly 2 million shells into Berlin, more explosive power than all the Allied bombs dropped on the city combined. On April 20th, Hitler's 56th birthday, the shelling doesn't stop. It's a birthday gift from Stalin himself. The weight of metal falling on Berlin is beyond comprehension. Buildings that survived years of bombing now collapse into rubble. The city transforms into a landscape of fire and destruction. But the Soviets face a nightmare. Before they even reach Berlin's streets, they must break through the Silo Heights, the last defensive line east of the city. For 4 brutal days, 100,000 German soldiers hold back the Soviet tide. 30,000 Soviet troops die just trying to get past this barrier. When they finally break through on April 19th, the real horror begins. On April 21st, the first Soviet units enter Berlin's suburbs. What they encounter is unlike any battle they've fought before. The Germans have turned every building into a fortress. Snipers hide on rooftops where Soviet tanks can't elevate their guns high enough to shoot. In the cellars below, soldiers armed with Panzerfaust anti-tank weapons wait in ambush. Machine gun nests cover every street corner. The city becomes a 3-dimensional battlefield where death waits on every floor. The Soviets adapt with terrifying efficiency. They stop moving down the streets where German ambushes slaughter them. Instead, they blast holes through apartment walls using captured German Panzerfausts, moving from building to building without ever stepping outside. Combat groups of 50 to 100 soldiers break into smaller teams of 3 to 5 men. They clear rooms with flamethrowers, grenades, and machine guns. They fight through attics and across rooftops. They dynamite tunnels through basements. The battle becomes intimate and savage, often descending into hand-to-hand combat with knives and shovels. Artillery guns are dragged forward and fired at point-blank range directly into buildings. Anti-aircraft guns designed to shoot planes are turned horizontally to blast German positions on upper floors. The Soviets show no mercy and accept no limits on casualties. Marshals Zhukov and Konev are racing each other to capture Berlin first, and they're willing to sacrifice thousands of lives for the glory. By April 25th, Berlin is completely encircled. Over 80,000 Soviet soldiers are already dead, but the Red Army keeps coming. The city center becomes hell on earth. Massive flak towers, concrete fortresses with walls several feet thick, shelter thousands of terrified civilians while Soviet shells pound the exterior. Hospitals overflow with wounded. Bodies pile in the streets and rot in collapsed cellars. The living carve meat from dead horses lying in the rubble. On April 29th, Soviet troops cross the Moltke Bridge and storm toward the Reichstag, the symbolic heart of Nazi power. The fighting inside the parliament building is room-to-room carnage. German defenders use snipers, machine guns, and booby traps. Every floor must be cleared in brutal close-quarters combat. Soviet soldiers fight their way up stairwells slick with blood, throwing grenades into rooms before charging in. On April 30th, as Soviet troops battle through the Reichstag's upper floors, Adolf Hitler puts a gun to his head in his bunker 50 feet below the Chancellery. His body is carried outside and burned in a bomb crater. He never sees the Soviet flag raised over the Reichstag that same day, the ultimate symbol of Nazi Germany's destruction. But the battle doesn't end with Hitler's death. Fighting continues for 2 more days. On May 2nd, General Helmut Weidling, commander of Berlin's defense, finally surrenders to the Soviets. The cost is almost incomprehensible. Over 81,000 Soviet soldiers are dead. Another 280,000 are wounded. German military losses reach 100,000 killed, and 125,000 Berlin civilians lie dead in the ruins. The Battle of Berlin stands as one of the most brutal urban battles in human history. Street by street, building by building, room by room, the Red Army ground through Hitler's capital in an apocalyptic finale to World War II in Europe. The city that was meant to rule a thousand-year empire lasted just 16 days against the Soviet onslaught. Berlin became a tomb, and the Third Reich died in its ashes.